Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. So tonight I'm talking about how to be financially sustainable for your nonprofit. If you want your nonprofit to be around for 20, 50 years, I'm going to give you some strategies. I'm going to do three things. We're going to talk about three things today that you should be aware of to prepare for that process. But before we go into it, let's do our introductions, y'all. If you don't know me, I'm Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I teach people to start their nonprofits and to raise money. Apologies for being late today. Getting everything together for my computer and stuff like that took longer. But I want you to introduce yourselves. Tell us where you're from, tell us who you are and your mission, because you never know who's in the chat. And here at Boss on a Budget, it's a community of people. It's people coming together, working together to lift each other up. So we're not about competition. We're not being territorial. We're sharing information freely. And so please feel free to share it in the chat. Please feel free to link up in the chat because we all need each other. Hey, Civis Mission. All right. 30,000 for 2025. I see you. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about what it means, first of all, or how to be financially sustainable. A couple weeks ago, I asked my email list to send me topics that they want me to do YouTubes on. And guess what? The most popular one was financial sustainability. So I decided to focus on that for a little while for the YouTube lives. So today I'm sharing three things you need to focus on, concentrate on, and I want you to follow along with me. So if you're ready, drop a money bag in the chat and we're going to jump right in. All right. So I was in a Facebook group and I like going in Facebook groups that talk about nonprofits just to see what's going on, just to see what questions people have. And a question that I saw earlier today was somebody who was asking how to transition off her nonprofit. She started her nonprofit 10 years ago. Hey, hey, City Boy Pablo. Good to see you. Glad you could catch me live too. Okay. She started her nonprofit 10 years ago, excuse me, and she's ready to transition off. She wants to find somebody else. She wants a succession plan, and she's finding it very hard to find somebody to take over. And there's reasons why she was having difficulties having somebody take over, having somebody kind of, be the executive director of the organization. And it got me to thinking. I was like, you know what? The very thing she's struggling with, I wish when she started 10 years ago, she had done some things to prepare for here and now. Because you're going to get to a point, God willing, 10 years from now, you're still going to be around, right? Hey, Jessica, good to see you. I know it's been a long time since I've been on Cheat Codes. Life is life, and child. But you're going to get to a point, God willing, that 10 years from now, you're going to still be around. And you need to be thinking about right now how you want to be 10 years from now. You need to be thinking right now who's going to be working for your organization, how big you're going to be, what kind of work you're trying to do. And what I find with a lot of people who start nonprofits, they really get stuck in the here and now. They get stuck in, I want to get started now. And a lot of people don't necessarily sit back and say, well, we're going to be this way, right? I want to work on this now because I want this to happen eventually, right? You don't have that big vision. So I'm going to go into like, how can you prepare now so that you're not like that person 10 years from now searching for somebody to take over her nonprofit, but she doesn't have the resources and can't afford to bring somebody in because nobody's going to have the passion to do it for free. Ready? All right, let's get into it. Thank y'all for introducing yourselves on Instagram. Go ahead, Instagram. All right, I see got a lot of people from Maryland and DC. Welcome, y'all. Hey, Cheryl. Number one, drop number one in the chat. You know, when I go live, I need y'all to talk to me. I need y'all to chat back because I don't like talking to a blank computer, like a silent computer. We're not doing that. And though I have my sound effects to comfort me, it's still not enough. I need y'all. Thank you very much. Thank y'all. All right, number one. This should not be a surprise to anybody. Put plan in the chat. Go ahead and put plan in the chat. But I'm going to talk to you about planning and what I mean by planning. So, as I just said, a lot of you guys, when you're starting your nonprofit, it's because you see a need and it's nagging at you and it keeps coming up for you. And you keep saying, why do I keep seeing this problem? Or why hasn't this been addressed yet? And who's going to do it? So you're really responding to the here and now, right? You're responding to what you see in action right now. But 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the world's going to be different. So you're not in that place where you're responding to that. You're responding to this, the here and now, right? And you're preparing yourself for the here and now. But being the executive director of your nonprofit requires you to have a vision to prepare for the here and now with an eye to the future. Can I say that again? It's to prepare you for the here and now with an eye to the future. And the future may be 2 years from now. The future may be 5. The future may be 10 years from now. But the big lesson from any of that is to say you need to plan. And what I really, really want you to do is learn how to listen. Learn how to listen to your board. Learn how to listen to your donors. Learn how to listen to your clients. Learn how to listen and pay attention to what's happening around you in your community, but also what's happening around you in the finance world, what's happening around you just in the world in general, right? So your clients, let's just take your clients. You may see how to do, you may have ideas about how to serve them right now, right? You may have ideas about what to do and how to address their needs now, but their needs may change and their needs may evolve, right? And they may know exactly what they need, and you may be making a lot of assumptions about what they need. So you may be providing services for people in a way that doesn't meet their needs, but it makes you feel good because you were able to do something. Now, I'm going to be stepping on some toes tonight, but it's okay. Just grab a drink of water. It's going to be okay. But this is what you have to go through if you want to make it long term. It no longer becomes about what you want to do. Can I say that again? Is it okay? Am I hurting your feelings? I'm using kid gloves right now. But what I want to say is it has to evolve from you doing what you want to do. A lot of people, they're starting their nonprofit because they want to help. I have ideas about helping people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you transition from just wanting to help people to have an actual business, it requires you to be savvy and it requires you to be a listener. And you gotta listen to the people you're serving because they're going to give you clues and they're going to tell you what you need and what they don't need. And they're going to tell you how to serve them and how not to serve them. When you're working with your board, they're going to tell you, they're going to give you clues about how they want to be engaged and how they don't want to be engaged. When you talk to your donors, they're going to tell you about why they gave and what encouraged them to give. And they're going to share clues about what not to do actually when you pay attention to them. So planning requires you first to listen. Because somebody put listen to the chat, because I just need to make sure y'all hear me on this one. It requires you to listen. And a part of that listening process, you're assessing, you're analyzing, you're thinking, right? Let me give you an example. I do a lot of different things, and I'm working on a project in North Carolina, related to early childhood or early care, which is basically, learning settings for kids 5 years and younger. And did y'all realize that this is a phenomenon where kids 5 and younger are getting suspended or expelled from from early care and education settings? Try not to say daycare because it's not daycare, right? Kids are getting suspended and expelled. They get suspended and expelled at a rate higher than kids in elementary school and any other kind of school. So 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds are getting kicked out. Sorry, my allergies are kicking my butt. Excuse me, y'all. They're getting kicked out, right? And so part of this, what I'm doing for this project or what I have done, I did community listening sessions for this foundation. And we went around the state and we did 8 sessions in different counties across the state. And we just talk to people. We talk to teachers. We talk to administrators at the centers. We talk to people who have childcare in their home. We talk to people who are private childcare owners. We talk to parents to get their perspective. We talk to caregivers. And a lot of what was said was not expected, right? A lot of what was said in those sessions where people got to explain their perspective, people didn't think, they didn't realize it was going to be said. First of all, that teachers are struggling. That's a given, but they didn't realize that sometimes being able to suspend a child or expel a child keeps the other children safe. Even though we don't want to do that. They feel like they have to because it keeps the other children safe. And parents don't want their kids to be in harm's way if other kids who are destructive in the classroom stay in the classroom. Right? We heard from teachers saying that kids are different. Something happened. They're different now. They're not the same they were 10 years ago. Right? Why am I making this point? I'm telling this story and I'm saying it to make a point that if you were in the early childhood space and you're operating off an assumption that things are, first of all, the way you want it to be, right? And not what's actually happening in the real world, or you're operating off an assumption that, oh, it's like it was 10 years ago, then you're going to be extinct because you have to realize that times are changing and you have to adapt to it. So part of you planning is for you to assess and do your research and figure out, first of all, what the heck is going on that we need to know about that may impact our growth, that may impact the things that we want to do. And what are the ways we need to adapt? And what are the ways that we need to lean into and just power through? What are the things that we're missing? What are our blind spots? And when you get so stuck on the here and now, when you get so stuck on, I'm just trying to maintain what I have right now, if you stay stuck in that place, then it's going to be hard for you to get unstuck. Can I get a witness? Oh my God. I got to hype myself up. If you stay stuck in that place, because I realize y'all are entrepreneurial. That's what you are. You're entrepreneurial because you decided, I'm going to start something when there's nothing there. I'm going to stand in the gap. I'm going to do something right now. So it's easy to get caught up in, I'm serving so many people now. Yeah, we're getting up and running, but so many people need us. And it's so hard to take a step back and say, wait a minute, should we continue doing this work just because somebody wants us to? Are we going to be able to financially afford it? Are we going to be able to do this long term? Right now, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Is that anybody? But is this realistic? Is this realistically going to work this way? And too many times you get to a point where you're forced to do something different because of circumstances. Instead, why not plan for that? Why not be prepared? You know, you're not going to always be completely prepared, but at least you should know what's coming or have some understanding of what's coming. And you know what? When your funders and your donors see that you're able to adapt, that you understand the world around you, they trust you. They trust that you can do the work. They trust that you're an organization that can handle what's coming. They trust that they're not going to give their money to a black hole that maybe 2 years from now is going to go away and not even exist. So the first piece of this is you got to plan, and the first part of planning is listening. One thing I want you to do, you got to have a 1-year plan. You got to know from year to year what you're going to do. You have to do that. That's your immediate need. But I also need you to look and ask yourself, where do we want to be 3 years from now? Where do we want to be 5 years from now? Where do we want to be 20 years from now? Do the exercises to ask yourself and your board that question. And then ask yourself, what do we need to be prepared for in order to get there? What do we need to do? What do we need to put in place now in order to get there? I want you to set aside time in your year for planning and reflection. This is a good time to do that. This time of the year or at the top of the year. It just depends on who you are and what your calendar looks like. But set aside time for assessment and reflection in your nonprofit. You should be doing this for anything, honestly, for a fundraising event, for a program you did, you're debriefing, trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work. So you should always have assessment and reflection as a part of your process. But overall, just your process overall, set aside time in your year to ask yourself, what's next? How do we need to prepare for what's coming next? And do your assessment. One thing that you can do is a SWOT analysis. I'm going to start talking about deep planning and all that at the top of the year in my lives, but I've talked a lot about a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What are you doing well? Where are your blind spots in terms of your weaknesses? What are the opportunities externally that you need to be aware of and you need to jump on? And then what are the threats? What are the things coming down the pike that you need to be aware of so you can figure out how to move around or how to adapt given that that's coming? But you can't do that analysis unless you listen and you assess. You got to listen and you got to assess. Does that make sense, y'all? I see some comments. That's my struggle, planning steps to get there. Hey, T-Mac and Miss Eman Mabrook. I probably didn't say that right, but I'm sorry. I'll be messing people's names up. But that's the first part. You got to plan. And part of your planning is assessment. And part of your essential plans from year to year, have a 1-year plan and have a budget. Essential. Your budget isn't your budget isn't what's in your bank account. That's what people think. Your budget is not that. Your budget is actually your plan in numbers. So you plan for something for the year and your budget tells you how much it's going to cost and how much you need to make in order to carry out that plan for the year. That's it. I know I made it sound so simple, but really it is that simple. And it just needs to be that simple when you're super new, right? But essential, your budget and your 1-year plan. And as a part of your budget, you need to figure out, well, how are we going to raise money? You need to talk about money. You need to be realistic. What is it going to take? What are the resources it's going to take for us to raise this money, right? What are the strategies that we're going to use to raise the money to make sure our 1-year plan can be successful? And you need to ask yourself, what is the type of money that we need to make? Because all money is not the same. All money that you're given or gifted as your nonprofit is not the same. So a foundation grant is different money than a major donor just dropping cash on you, right? The amount of effort it takes for each strategy is different. The people you need involved and the resources that you have to employ is different. So it really involves you going through the process, asking yourself, okay, if I know I need to raise this money, what do I need to do? What do I need to focus on to get there? All right. So that was the first one. The big one was planning. It was obvious. That's an obvious point, but I needed to break down a little bit, like what part of the planning is important in the listening. The listening is so important. So if you're still with me, drop number 2 in the chat. Also, if you like this, please like this video. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe. Please do so. Doing that shows Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube that I'm a good thing, that I should stay around, and I need that. All right. So please also tag someone who needs this information, and don't forget to share info about Boss on a Budget. All right. Number 2, invest. Somebody put invest in the chat. Invest. So there's this thing about nonprofits that I don't really like. There's this thing about nonprofits. Thank you, T-Mac. I don't know if it's she or he. Sorry. Or they. You're very helpful. I appreciate you. There's this thing about nonprofits where people love to talk about scarcity. They love to joke about the fact that nonprofits never have any money. Like, it's a joke. It's a really legit joke in some spaces. And it's cool. Like, oh, we always get the hand-me-downs. And also, people don't like for nonprofits to prosper. Let's be real. Can we have a real conversation about this? It's weird to me. And I get where people are coming from, but it's still weird that they don't think that nonprofits should prosper. They don't think that nonprofits should be healthy. They don't think that nonprofits should be healthy enough to pay their staff well, or to do things that other businesses need to do to grow, right? So a very clear example is if you pay your staff well, you'll get better work out of your staff. If you compensate your staff, you have benefits for your staff, then it's going to show in the work that they do. But because nonprofits have this scarcity thing going on, oh, we can't pay well because we can't look like we got too much money, or we can't be rolling in the dough as a nonprofit. And it's so weird because nonprofits are doing some of the most delicate, some of the most important work that we have in our society. And it's weird because you want the people executing that to be poor. Like, you want the people who are doing some of the things that are absolutely needed in our world to not be well, to not be able to live, to not be able to pay their rent. So you browbeat their organizations so that they don't have the resources they need to do that. Now, let me say there's some organizations though that are shady and don't and can pay their people well and better and don't. But it's because of that scarcity mindset. It's because if we if we invest too much, if we put too much money into something, we're going to die. But here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Especially because y'all are new, it's hard for people who are already established to get this, but you can get this. This is why y'all are so special. You can learn this now and use it and never forget it. You have to have an abundance mindset. You cannot go into this assuming you're never going to have. And I talk about that a lot with fundraising, but I just mean period, with your nonprofit, with your programming, with how you treat your people, with your board. If you are always speaking over your nonprofit, it'll never be enough. We don't have, we can't, we don't. If you find yourself saying that a lot, then I need you to reprogram yourself because you are operating in a scarcity mindset, which we all have. And sometimes scarcity protects us, for better or worse. So I'm not shaming people for being that, but I'm asking you and challenging you to turn that around, because if you don't have an abundant mindset, then you'll never reach the goals you're trying to reach. Like, you'll never be able to reach past or reach higher if you are always telling yourself you can't or you won't. Make sense? I saw a post today on Threads where somebody was like, to be a business owner requires a little bit of delusion. And what they're saying is basically, you got to believe when things don't look like it's really going to happen. It doesn't look like it looks a little shaky. And you got to have a certain level of what they call delusion to believe that it can actually work. And it's the same thing. You have to believe, even if it feels like the most impossible thing in the world, you still got to talk to yourself. You still got to tell yourself, we can do this. We can do this. We will do this. You still have to. I can't tell you what will happen, but all I can say is you can control how you approach it. You can't control what happens, but you absolutely can control how you go into it. Absolutely. And so I said all that to say, let's get back to invest, because I'll be going off because the things that be running in my head. Invest in yourself. Sometimes when you have to do something, it takes money to do it. When you need to learn a new technology or learn how to implement something, sometimes it takes money to do it. Invest your money. Sometimes you got to invest time into people, right? You don't want to do it. You don't want to work so closely with your board because they should get it. And why do I have to spend so much time with my board for them to do the basic things? But you have to invest your time in those people because you have to believe that what you put out there will come back to you. You have to invest in the people who come to you. You're going to have to hire. You're going to have to think about and plan for how to hire. Because one of the greatest ways you can make money and sustain it is to hire somebody who that's all their job is to raise money for you. So at some point, instead of you as the executive director or the founder doing everything, you're going to have to hire. And you're going to have to believe in that. You're going to have to stretch and believe. Do your research though. Like, you still have to hire well, but you're going to have to invest in that. And it's going to hurt. And it's going to feel like, I don't have the money for this. But if it's the thing that you know is going to take you to the next level, then you got to do it. There have been moments in my business where I've had to hire, didn't want to, didn't know if I could maintain it, but I did. I maintained it. And I knew that investing in that area of my business was going to help me get what I needed to get what I needed or go where I needed to go. And here's one thing that has been really weighing on me lately, just in my business, but just it is going to apply to you too. In the areas where you are afraid to take risks are often the areas that will unlock your next level. So in the areas where you're afraid to invest, and a lot of times for us, it's a fear of investing money, or it could just honestly be a fear of investing time. I don't want to spend too much time working on that because it ain't going to be worth it. That's me sometimes. I don't want to do this and be consistent with it and show up with it over and over and over again because it ain't going to work anyway. I don't want to go live every week for what? This was me I think in like 2000, I don't know what year it was. I've been going live for a long time, y'all. I've been going live since like 2018. I don't know if many of y'all have been following me this long. There are a couple of people who have. If Lynn is watching, shout out to Lynn. But I've been going live since 2015. And I used to go live 3 times a week on Facebook. It wasn't YouTube, it was Facebook. And I got to a point where I was just like, I don't want to do this. This is too much. I got so much going on. Why am I going live? So I would stop. And then I would pick up again. And then I would stop. And then one day I realized like me going live is how I can connect with people. Me going live is where I can hear from people. And I just needed to tweak how I was doing it. I wasn't going live on YouTube where my biggest audience was, and it didn't make sense. So I decided to, instead of doing 3 times a week, do 1 time a week and do it consistently. And I've been going live consistently at least a year, y'all. It's probably been more than that. I've been doing videos on YouTube since 2020, but going live, I've been doing that for a long time. And there are moments where I was like, I don't want to invest this time. Like, I just don't want to do this. What is this going to do for me? And sometimes you're not going to have that answer, but you got to know that that's what you need to focus on. That's where you need to spend your time. That's where you need to spend your energy. And it's not going to feel like it's going to be an immediate return because most times it's not. What's up, Gerald? It's not. But that doesn't mean it's not worth your time. It's not worth you investing your time, your energy, and your money. See, when you plan and you listen and you assess and you look at trends and you see where things are going, you can plan for yourself better. You can have sharper instincts. So your instinct can tell you know what? I see in the world of whatever that things are going this way. We probably need to go this way. But then that requires you to invest your time in that, invest your money in that. But that's where we stop, where we're like, I don't know about that. Yeah, but that's a lot of money though. That's a lot of time. I don't have time for that. I need you to believe. Somebody said faith. Somebody said think big. Elisa said think big. Yes. So for you, if you find yourself, especially in hard situations or challenging situations, or you're fearful, if you are fearful, that's often an indicator that you need to go deeper. But I can't make that decision for you though. Like I can't tell you, yeah, do that thing. By you listening, by you planning, by you assessing, your instinct will tell you. A lot of times for people who don't know what the next step is, if you listen enough, you know what the next step is. That's me. I can only talk about me right now. I sometimes will plan to death and be worried about taking that next step and know deep down exactly what I need to do. But I don't feel like doing it because I don't want to feel the disappointment when I take that next step and something bad happens or it doesn't go my way. Because if it doesn't go my way, that must be a sign I shouldn't be doing it. And that's not necessarily true. But I'm telling you, in those areas where it feels challenging, it feels shaky, it feels risky, are often the moments that pay off for people. Gerald says, you have to be built for it. If you are not, do something else. That's okay. Go work with someone else who shares your mission. Gerald is funny. But you do have to be built for it. We're going to have Gerald on because he got a lot of news to share. We're going to have him on the live show. But I'm just saying that. I'm just being honest that you got to invest in yourself. You have to invest in your nonprofit, and you have to invest in your people. Invest in your people. So that also means investing time, building relationships, getting to know people, talking to people. You're not going to make this if you don't want to talk to people. You're not going to make it to 20 years if you don't want to collaborate with people. If you don't want to come out of your shell, you're not going to make it. And I'm actually not discouraging you, because sometimes when people hear me say that, they feel like I'm telling them, like wishing death on them or something. I'm not. I'm telling you from what I've seen. I'm actually giving you what you need. But if you also automatically go there, then that's a signal to me about your mindset. And you got to understand that investing and thinking abundantly is where you'll be successful. Gerald said, quitters never win, winners never quit. Hey, Veronica. Hey, let's just all shout out Veronica. She's an APP member. She just had her fundraising, her annual fundraising event last night for Victory for Families. Let's whoop whoop for her. Check her out and follow her on Instagram. Victory for Families Inc. on Instagram. All right. So that's number 2. I know I spent a lot of time there, but when I believe in something, when it's weighing on me to say it, I'm just going to go in. In my notes, that wasn't in my notes, half the things that I said. So that means you needed to hear that. That was for you. Somebody put number 3 in the chat. If you with me, put number 3. With me. Number 3. I can't see nothing on my iPad. Number 3.
Another one.
Okay. Oh, Veronica said it was amazing. Everything I imagined it to be plus more. That's what I'm talking about. Yes. Hey, what's up, coach? Good to see you. All right, number 3. Oh, this one is going to be hard. This one, well, we're going to be able to get through it. You want to be here 20 years from now? I'm changing this, actually. I'm actually going to change this. Isn't that something in the moment? Okay, I'm going to go with it. How do I want to phrase this one? I want to phrase this as you set the tone. So I want to hear you guys say, I set the tone. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. So a lot of times, hey, Willie, good to see you, APP member. So a lot of times, people who have nonprofits operate from, I'm going to hope things come to me, right? Or I'm going to let things happen to me, right? Or I'm going to just follow what everybody else is doing. I'm not going to set the tone for what my nonprofit is. What I'm trying to say is, I need you all to be different and be innovative, and you be the differentiator in your space. So tradition would tell you, when you want to get grant funding, tradition would tell you to wait for a RFP, a request for proposals. When you see that request for proposals, you look at it, look through it, decide if it's for you, and you apply. You wait to hear back from somebody, and that's it. But I don't need you to operate like that if you want to be here for 20 years. I want you to have a list of funders that you want to go after, that you want to pitch, and I want you to start talking to them first. I don't want you to wait to hear of a request or to wait for a funder to tell you they're giving out money. I need you to show up first. That's what I mean by setting the tone. You drive the bus. You are the initiator. So I need you to have the confidence to go to a funder and say, hey, we noticed that in our area, we're missing this. This is how we're different. This is how we address this need that nobody else is addressing. I need you to have the confidence to say that to a funder and say, what can we do to work on it together? Because a foundation's goal is to invest in the community, but they need you to be able to invest in that community. You are a solid partner for them to do that. So you go into that room as their partner, not as their grantee, not as the person they're just deciding whether or not they want to work with. You're going in there as their partner. I don't want you to wait for things to happen to you or for you. I need you to set the tone. Here's another thing, another example. Earned income strategies. Typically in the nonprofit world, we get money from grants and donations. Typically. Those are the big ones. But you can earn money as a nonprofit. You can absolutely earn money as a nonprofit. You have some tax implications you need to be mindful of, but you can sell a service. You can have a product. You can do that. You absolutely can do that. And so you can set a service or provide a training or develop a model for somebody that you're going to offer to other nonprofits and get paid to do it, so that your organization has unrestricted money that it can use to do the work that it needs to do. So instead of just relying on what tradition tells you, it requires you to look at things a little differently. It requires you to see, oh, I'm going to be innovative and I'm going to figure out a strategy to make money that way, not like everybody else. Now, you can learn from people, but you don't want to be like everybody else. You're setting the tone that you are different. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? And this can happen in many different ways, but especially I want you to think about when it comes to earned income. So here's another example. This is really just coming off the top of my head. So I talk a lot about collaboration. I talk a lot about, go to meetings, meet people, build partnerships, we talked about the Chamber of Commerce. We talked about your nonprofit association. We talked about your community foundation. Yes, show up to these places. Absolutely. Your Rotary Club. Let people know everywhere who you are and where you are. But what if you were the facilitator? What if you brought people to you? What if you held events to let people know that you are a giant in the space? Because sometimes we come into it and we're like, oh, we're small. Nobody's going to pay attention to us. But what if you decided to start having events and start sharing your perspective and bringing heavyweights to you instead of you going to the heavyweights? So what if you started reaching out to your local officials or your local bankers or the executive directors of your local foundations? And what if you brought them together? What if you had roundtables with them and let them know, we need you to partner with us? What if you were bold and audacious enough to do something like that instead of waiting for them to call you? You call them. You call them out. You bring them to the table. I feel like I'm yelling and I'm not. I just mean that you being around, especially in this environment, especially the way you all are starting. You all are starting in a very entrepreneurial way. You all are scrappy, you are making it work, y'all using your own money. And so if you want to stand out 20 years from now, then it requires you setting the tone for everyone else. It requires you being the one letting people know who you are, not letting anybody else speak for you, right? It requires you to be the proactive one, to go out there and make the connections that you want to make and not wait for them to come to you. I hope this makes sense. It requires you to look at what is normally done and say, I could do that better. I could do you one better. I could do that one differently. It requires you to always look at the ways you can innovate and be the difference maker in the space, so that when you show up, people are like, there's something about them. It's something about how they do their work. It's something about how they approach the things that they approach. It's just something different. And when people see something different, that they're curious, they want to know more, right? And that starts a relationship with people. And when you start a relationship with people, then they begin to trust you. And with trust comes money. Let's just say it. With trust comes money. And let's be real. There are some people who look at you funny because you small, or they look at you funny because you black, or they look at you funny because you represent a population that maybe has a disability, or you represent a population that's considered undesirable, right? Maybe you serve people who are struggling with substance use, right? And so they're looking at you, and maybe that was your story, and you're starting from the ground up. Let's be real. There's some people who look at you and be like, well, you know about starting a nonprofit. What does anybody know about starting a nonprofit? Can we push back? What does anybody know about starting a nonprofit? People are literally making it up as they go. And you want to let somebody tell you that you're not good enough when they couldn't do half the things you're doing right now? They couldn't even fathom, figure out where to start because they had a head start. I don't even want to go there. I don't even want to go there on that one. You know what I mean? So it requires you, instead of letting people speak for you, instead of letting people tell you who you are and what you can and can't do, it requires you setting the tone for yourself and saying, this is who we are, and we're going to bring people to us. People are going to be attracted to us. People are going to be calling us. People are going to be knocking on our door because they want to see how we're different, and they want to see how we did this and how we maintain. Being that way, being that innovative, I guess I could have said innovation in the chat. I could have titled this one innovation. Being that way helps you survive. Helps you survive. So, questions. I'm be honest because I like to be transparent. I literally just came up with this topic 10 minutes before I got on. But I have been in my head trying to figure out, what do I want to say? What do I want to say? You know, you can say a lot about financial sustainability, and you're going to hear the same things. You're going to hear people say, have a plan, you know, financially plan. You're going to hear people say, invest in a board, make sure you have people, you know, have a board to help you raise money. You know, I just didn't want to say all the traditional things because, yes, that's an important too. But also what's important is you and how you approach this thing. You and how you look at this. Your success largely starts with you. The seed is actually in you. How you nurture it, how you talk to yourself, how you care for the seed in you will dictate where you're going to be 20 years from now. Because guess what? You may not even be working for the organization 20 years from now. But everything you did today, everything you put in place today can mark the success for your organization later. So everything, every approach, everything you say, literally the things you say, this isn't a temporary thing. This isn't something you just decided, hey, I'm going to do it. No, this is something where you are planting a seed. And you're praying, yes, that it's going to grow and it's going to develop. That's my prayer for everyone. But how you care for it right now in this moment matters. How you talk about it, how you care, it matters. So you got to pay attention to that. And the things you talk about, like how you talk to yourself, how you talk about your dream, how you talk about what's next really matters. I'm telling you that what you see is going to look like crap. It's going to feel like crap. It's going to feel hard. It's going to feel like it's not worth it. It is. But that doesn't mean because that's what you see that you have to say those things. You have to speak those things. You can speak something completely different. Because who knows, 20 years from now, somebody whose life will be changed as a result of what you did right now. Shoot, 2 months from now. And I need y'all to start looking at yourselves like that. Because I encounter so many people who are like, oh, we're just small. We're not, you don't feel like you're impactful enough because your budgets aren't big, or because you don't know certain people, or it doesn't look like you're winning. You look like a failure because you haven't been able to secure a strong enough board or nothing like that. But let me tell you something. Most of y'all are operating despite that. Most of y'all are operating despite that. And if you're operating, that means you're helping somebody. And isn't that the point? That's all I'm saying. Isn't that the point? So if that's the point and you're able to do that even in the midst of what you don't have right now, then imagine what would happen if you ignored what was happening right now and still spoke that abundance into your life. Still had that delusion, like that person said on Threads, that it's going to be different. It's going to be okay. Because what you decide, literally what you decide, can change someone's whole life. Whole life. And even if, let me just say this, because sometimes it weighs on me too, because people contact me and say, Tiffany, I tried, but I realized that nonprofit's not for me. And yeah, I'm giving it up. And I don't see that as a failure, because if you operate for 5 years, you helped somebody. So even if you decide in your planning, in your assessment, that it's time to let it go, because that may be a conclusion that you have, you still help somebody. And isn't that the point? Isn't that the point? Coach says, what else matters is that it's not just about you. It's about the people you are standing for. That's right. So for you, it doesn't feel good. But when you stepped into this space, it immediately became about someone else. It immediately came about everything you do or don't do impacts somebody else, because that's how nonprofits operate. That's what it's for. A nonprofit is not designed to benefit you. That's the point. And some people are confused about that, and that's okay. But the minute you decide that this is what is going to be my life right now, means that every single thing you put in is for somebody else. And so you stopping because it didn't benefit you or didn't make you feel good, that doesn't actually matter because you're doing this not for yourself. Right. And sometimes you got to have that hard conversation with yourself and say, am I built for this? Is this what I should do? That's why you have a board to support you. That's why you have people to support you through this, because it ain't easy and it ain't meant to be. And honestly, I believe what we're seeing in our communities and in society right now, it's on us. And I said this before. There's some things the government can't and won't do. And there are some things that the business world can and won't do. We believe, oh, business is going to save us. No, just because people have money doesn't mean that that money is going to help and save anything. I believe that what the things that we're seeing that we're struggling with in our individual communities right now, and we're struggling in many different ways, and I feel like we're really at a crossroads. The core of what needs to change are y'all. Like, you have the keys. You have the keys. And what you're doing right now is the catalyst for the change we need to see. What you are doing, not what the government. And I'm not against government. So I just want to be clear. I'm not one of them people. I believe it has a place, right? But there are some things it can't and won't do. And honestly shouldn't do. You know what I mean? And a lot of what we need to see is in what you're doing right now. Is what you're pouring in right now. What you're planning to do right now. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent because I really believe this. I didn't know this video was going to be an hour. I'm so sorry. But I just had to say it. And I just want to say real quick, Coach is on here. He has a nonprofit in New York called the Bro Experience, and he just put a comment. He said, Tiff and Gerald are the greatest. I started my org with no money. 4 years later, because of their spark, we are operating at $500,000. That is amazing. Y'all don't understand like what that means to me, to hear something like that. Like, to know that you stick it out and it works. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. And don't let anybody tell you you can't. Don't let anybody tell you can't. And a lot of what we need is in you right now, is in what you're building right now. But you got to care for it. You are the steward over it. So how are you stewarding your dream? How are you stewarding the seed for your organization, like the seed for your idea? Because what you put out into the world is going to change somebody. It is. But how are you going to maintain it to make sure it happens long term? All right, y'all. So Just rounding out really quickly, how to be financially sustainable. Have a plan. I'm rounding up. For those who are just watching, you can go back and watch it because this will be up. Have a plan. Having a plan involves listening and assessing and putting time in your year to reflect and assess. Number 2, invest. Invest in yourself, invest money, invest in people. And number 3, you set the tone. You're the innovator. You decide how you want to go about this, and you be different. You don't have to do it the traditional way. There are some things in tradition you should do, but there are things that you need to do to stand out to make it. So you decide and you set the tone. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Cheryl. She said, girl, you are preaching. You're welcome. I will be back. Will I be back next Sunday? I hope so. I'll be in another state, but I should be able to go live. I thank you all so much for hanging in there with me, for supporting Boss on a Budget. Share, like, subscribe, all the things. Have an awesome week, y'all. Make sure you steward your dream. That's your job, to steward your seed and steward your dream. Love you. See you next time.